Hello everyone, my name is Erin and I'm the chair of the Southern Branch of the Irish Patchwork Society. We have started a block of the month back in June and have continued it over the summer, and this is September 2016's block of the month. It is called the Coffin Star. And here is the block. You can see that it is a 16 patch block that has been set on point with some setting triangles. So a fairly easy block and hopefully pretty enjoyable for you to make. So I'm going to start out by first showing you some quilt variations that you can make out of just this one block. The first one is just the quilt block, 4 blocks across and 4 blocks down, and this is what it would look like, which is pretty nice. I personally like this one a little bit better. It has some contrast sashing in it. Again, it's still just 4 blocks across and 4 blocks down. You could also keep those contrasting cornerstones, but keep the sashing the same as the background fabric, and that's pretty nice. And another variation you could do is to put the block on point. However, I'm not sure I would do this. There's a lot more easier ways to create a quilt that would look like this without the work of setting triangles and putting things on point. So it's just an example of something you could do, but not sure I'd do it that way. And then this is just the block on point, just all there's 3 blocks across and 3 blocks down, and then some setting triangles as well. And I think this one's quite interesting. And then I thought, well, what happens if you put some sashing in there? And so that's what that quilt would look like. And then here's what it would look like if you used some contrast sashing. And then I thought, let's go really crazy and have contrast cornerstones. And so I think that one's really nice. And it's just, these are all examples of something that you can make using this one quilt block. So let's get started with the construction. The first thing you're going to need to do is cut out your fabric. For your background fabric, which in our example I used white, you're going to need 2 6 7/8 inch squares. And then you have 2 different contrast fabrics. The first fabric that I used, it's sort of like a brown checkerboard is kind of what I'm going to call it. And then the second is a blue giraffe fabric. Both of these fabrics, for the whole quilt that I'm making, this is from Robert Kaufman line called Rhoda Ruth, and it's by Elizabeth Hartman. So just to give you that information. But from those contrast fabric squares, you're going to need, or from those contrast fabrics, you're going to need 8 2 5/8 inch squares. And so you're going to need a total of 16 squares, 8 from each of those contrast fabrics. Once you've cut all that, you're going to take all 16 of those 2 5/8 inch squares, and you're going to arrange them into an alternating checkerboard pattern, like so. And then I just use just a methodical approach, and I start sewing these into pairs, just to kind of help keep myself organized. And then I sew the pairs into rows. And when you press your seams in this, think about how you want to press your seams, so you can nest your seams when you sew the rows together. So the first row, I think I pressed to the right, and the second row I pressed to the left. The third row I pressed to the right. Last row I pressed to the left, just so I could nest those seams and have really precise intersections. Once you do that, you're going to sew your rows into pairs, making sure that those seams are nested, and pin if necessary. And then you're going to take those pairs and sew them into a square. Once you do that, you're going to set this aside for a moment. And then you're going to take the 6 7/8 inch squares, and for both of them, you're going to cut them in half along the diagonal. So you'll have a total of 4 triangles. You're going to take one triangle, fold it in half, and finger press a crease along that long side that you just cut. Be careful because this is a biased edge and you don't want to stretch it, so just be very gentle when you handle this, and just finger press a crease just at that long side. And the reason you want to finger press that little crease is because this is going to help you align that triangle. You're going to get the center of the triangle aligned with the center of that 16 patch. And then I find using pins with this is really helpful. So then you pin and you use a 1/4 inch seam and sew across that top there. And then prior to pressing it open, I will repeat that with the opposite triangle. That same process of finger pressing a crease, pinning it onto my 16 patch, and then sewing a 1/4 inch seam. Once you do that, you're going to then press open those triangles before adding the remaining triangles that you have, because it won't turn out correctly if you do not press it open. And then you're just going to follow that same process of finger press a crease, align to the center, and pin and sew with the other remaining 2 triangles. And this is the block that you end up with. And then trim any dog ears that you're going to have at the points of that square that's on point there. And just give it a nice iron and set it aside for construction of the quilt. Be sure to check out our Pinterest boards for inspiration of quilts that you can make using these blocks. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me at corkips@gmail.com. And you can find the instructions for previous blocks in our Block of the Month project at www.ipscork.com. The instructions for this block will be posted in 3 months. So I guess that would be in December. You'll find the instructions for this block on our website. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next month.